Hola,
Hello.
yes.
Buenos dias. Buenas noches, or
Torres Taco Bell? No, maybe not.
No. And this is how you offend your audience. You almost forgot to throw in something about housekeeping.
Oh my God.
I'm sorry, I'm gonna get fired for this one.
So, as you can see, we're really enjoying our time with our special friend.
Yes, very
the
much so.
flowers.
Yes, the flower.
The Jedi Master of Awesomeness is teaching us Padawans a thing or two. So this is the part of the video that we just sort of want to talk the lighter aspects, spirituality aspect that sort of could uplift us from those spaces.
Right.
So Moshe came out with a great saying. I know we've heard this a bazillion times, but it's saying we are not human beings on a spiritual journey. We are spiritual beings on a human journey. So oftentimes we think we're this corporate being stuck in our body going on a spiritual quest, but maybe the opposite is we are actually a spiritual being trying to understand what the heck's going on here.
Yes.
So we've been talking a lot about depression. Started with sort of a general idea in terms of Western philosophies and things, and then we spoke about sort of the dark sides of coping mechanisms. So now I want to start talk about the good side of things. Yeah. And you mentioned this amazing podcast that you've been listening, and I find that so interesting. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I've been listening to a podcast called A Quiet Mind. I don't know who the person is. I don't know where he is. I think he's in California. The best I know that he was facing some health issues, so he's not even making it anymore. And so there's about 150 episodes, or 130, and that's what's there. But for me, it's been lately the most incredible coping mechanism. It's just something that I listen to on a near daily basis.
So what does it do?
What does it? It plays sounds in my ear and I listen to it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
But in a sense, what is it about that podcast that brings it?
Yeah, so it's really about identifying kind of our true self, and how one of the things I think we talked about was the aspect of thoughts, and how, what are these thoughts, and these are things that we don't have, like we don't create the thoughts kind of happen,
right,
and they're there, and it's not really within our control, and so really getting in touch with the aspect of we're not defined by our emotions. We're going to have them. We're not defined by these experiences that happen.
Right.
They're going to happen one way or another. There's not really the good or the bad.
Yes.
We can pull out that judgment,
yes,
and just accept things for what they are as they're happening. Get in touch with what's going on today, what's going on right now at this moment, and knowing that everything will be okay, and that our true self is already here. That we don't actually have to search for it, because everything is on the inside. And so all that love and that comfort and that connection, it's all here. It's already within us.
It's like what Tino has said time and time again to me. It's I'm learning those things that get in the way of connecting to that true self that's in the core.
And it's about maybe releasing stuff that is.
Very much so.
We've learned it. We've learned the lessons. We can now let it go.
Yeah.
And I guess the idea would be is we are de-evolving to evolve.
Right.
I always say.
Yeah.
Maybe. Because we sort of learn in a society a certain way, and maybe it's not working for some of us. So some of us are going, what is it spiritually? We are this being stuck in this space. What do we do with it and stuff? So you were talking about true self.
Yeah.
And one of the things, guys, I wrote about in the first episode, which is joy or bust, which is the Japanese proverb about the three faces, which is the first face we show to the world, the second to our family and friends, and the third, which is the most truest reflection, true self.
Mm-hmm.
How is it understanding our sense of true self, do you think might be able to cope with depression? Because if we don't know what, I mean, we're caught in that space of prison of darkness. Like knowing true self, how can we go from that space to trying to cope with that?
For me, what it's been lately is a matter of accepting that all these things that are happening, all these thoughts, all these sensations, they do not define who I am and how I am. And I haven't yet, I don't truly understand what true self is. But I'm starting to really appreciate experiences for what they are and feelings. And I think you mentioned before that we need the good and the bad. We need that balance. We need the two together.
Right.
And so it's really about embracing that and removing judgment from it.
Right.
And watching it for what it is. And just being. And so one of my favorite things with it, I think, is the aspect of space. And if we look at the fundamental, from a scientific aspect, all these atoms, and really breaking it down, and it's like electrons. We get into electrons where they're moving really, really quick. But when we look at the real strong breakdown, there's emptiness in between it all.
Yeah.
And so that, I think, is the interpretation of true self. It's that quiet.
Yeah.
That just being.
And in terms of space, just to give an image, I could be wrong, and people can check this online, but I think if you take all of the content that's in the physical world in our reality, you can, if you take out all that space within an atom, it can be put into the size of a sugar cube. That's how physical reality it is too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and especially because you're a scientist. You were a scientist.
Yes, yeah.
In another lifetime.
Yes, it was. So
right?
yeah, so it's pretty remarkable how much all around us is really made up of space.
Yeah.
And what's funny is that we live in a society where we don't have that idea of space in our mind. We are cluttered with rules and thoughts that does not maybe does not support us, or maybe it does. I don't know. Maybe it's a journey. I don't know.
Yeah,
it's how you like you say perceptive or perception.
Yeah.
How you see things, right?
One of the aspects I got from the podcast was about it being a game. I think it was from the podcast, and it's about the world that we live in really isn't necessarily a kind place. Doesn't matter where it is. We aren't necessarily in this kind of place, but it's how do we learn the tools that we need to navigate?
Yeah.
How do we get through this? What can we do to keep ourselves not necessarily moving, but keep ourselves going in a way that is working for us, as opposed to working for someone else? Because we can never ever fully live up to other people's expectations, but we can always live up to our expectations if we're realistic.
Yeah,
standards.
It's funny you
Healthy
said that.
Standards, guys.
Because I'm eager to just share a couple of things that we talked about offline, and also from Tina and I had last month when we were talking about self-love. The true being, to get to a place of self-love, one of the things that we discovered was our identity is a stepping stone.
Things. Yeah.
And so a part of recovering from negative experiences or making sense of them is to become more self-loving and kind. And if by identifying who our true self is and seeing it perhaps from a spiritual point of view, that kind of helps the process. And I don't think it's a coincidence that AA meetings and AA groups and those recovery groups, they start with a spiritual component where they recognize that there's a higher being that is involved in our lives, and I think that's a therapeutic tool for many people. And the other thing that I think it's important to mention is that recovery, as you said, is a journey of self-discovery.
Yeah.
Right? It's not just about recovering and getting better, it's actually trying to find out who am I.
Through the dust bunnies.
Yes. So she mentioned dust bunnies, yeah.
Layer after layer. You get rid of each dust bunny of layers. You get back into questioning. Hey, I got another dust layers of bunnies I got to get rid of.
So really, I just want to start using Swiffer dust bunnies as my blanket every night.
Exactly.
Toss and turn, and it'll.
Exactly, because that is, we are, as I said, de-evolving to
Yeah.
evolve, and we're getting rid of all these layers of
Yes.
dust and filters or whatever you want
Yeah.
to say that sort of hides us from the true self, perhaps.
Right.
Yes.
And what's cool is that you mentioned life is difficult, and
Mhm.
one of our videos, one
Last
of
week,
the
yeah.
most influential book in my life is Dr. Scott Peck,
Mhm.
where he actually literally begins the sentence, life is difficult. And if you accept it, life gets easy, which
Yeah.
is the paradox of everything. Then you no longer put that energy into fighting or
Yes.
resisting that space, but as you say, be mindful and accept that it is not who we are.
Could you share some of that? Because what you said before, and it was off the air, and I want to pull it into the conversation, was you're coming to a place where you're accepting this moment. You're not trying to fight it anymore with a moment that's uncomfortable. You're like, I can accept it. And I think that's so powerful,
Yeah.
just to be able to negotiate these rough waters sometimes.
Yeah. I think the concept that I've come to believe is that the aspect is the more we can be with what's going on now,
Right.
and living in the present doesn't mean that we're getting rid of. It's great to have plans. It's really incredible to have plans for the future. But if we really hold tightly to making sure that everything goes exactly a certain way, it has to go this way, and we can't do anything different. And if anything changes, we need to do everything we can to bring that in. We're fighting what's actually happening. And so what could happen is we may plan to go this way,
Right.
but something in life all of a sudden
Yes.
changes.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden there's something else that we have to do. And it's not a good thing or a bad thing necessarily, but it's just something's changed.
Yeah.
And so if we're aware of what's happened, all we have to do is just be with it.
Mhm.
And if we're with that, then, maybe we need to change the path. Maybe we end up in the same spot. Maybe we end up somewhere completely different. And it's something that we never had an idea about.
Yeah.
And we learned something new. And it's
Yeah.
something that benefits us in a way that we never possibly imagined.
Yeah.
And that's exciting because I just thought to myself, wow, it's a new way of looking at the word depression. As not as a negative
Yes. Amen.
aspect,
Hallelujah.
That's
but,
true.
Well
but
said.
something that is a detour
Yes.
to maybe discover more about who we really are. Or
Yes.
that maybe something isn't working in our lives, and maybe depression are something in our body is saying stop,
Yes, can be.
stop, maybe,
be.
right? How
And that's
cool it is.
whatever it is, right? There's, yeah, sorry. Good
No.
point.
No.
I was like blown away. You're just like, this is such a good way to look at depression. A
Yeah, it is.
detour.
And one of the things that comes up again and again in just in life that you hear, people go through cancer or get into accidents, and some people even lose their children, or all these traumatic experiences, and yet when they grieve and process it, they actually say on some level that this was a powerful moment in my life. It changed my life. It made me a better.
They didn't fight it. And so what makes depression less than that? Why does it
Yes,
in
exactly.
our society that say depression is
Exactly.
a disgusting,
Right.
horrible word?
Yeah.
Because why? Is it connected to suicide? So it's like
Yeah.
scary stuff and stuff.
Yeah.
But these are the things we need to talk about in a way
Yes.
that we're honest about it. It's good and it's bad.
Yeah.
And it's okay to sometimes to take a detour in our lives. I think that's pretty good.
Rich conversation. I loved it.
Sam,
Thank you
I
very
love
much.
you.
Yes. Yes.
Sam, can you adopt me to your little sister?
Yes, you may camp out on the couch.
And we could like dial a Sam.
That's yes.
So Sam, I'm feeling a bit
That-
tense
that's-
today. Can you help me put
That's
things
okay.
into perspective?
I'm off duty, go call someone else.
Sam, I've got a bunch of baked goods I just made. It has my name on it.
Come right over.
So bribery works. guys.
Yes.
Bribery
Especially
works.
with
So we want to thank Sam,
Thank
the
you very
flower,
much.
the
Yes,
Jedi
thank you both.
Master,
It was
the
beautiful.
everything that a Padawan of Moshe and I can only hope to be,
Yeah.
to grow up to become. We are little gardens in your nursery.
You are both wiser than you give yourselves credit for.
So bye guys.
you.
We'll see you next
Take
week.
care. Bye bye.